Have you ever noticed how the harder you fight to defend yourself, the more twisted your words become in the mouths of others? How standing up for truth, respect, or even basic fairness sometimes only makes you look desperate, while those who've wronged you walk away unscathed, wearing smug smiles like armor? It's one of life's cruel paradoxes. The more you react, the more power you give away. But what if I told you that the most powerful move you can make isn't to explain, to argue, or to beg for justice? It's to go silent, to stop chasing, stop reacting, and watch as life, fate, or karma, whichever name you prefer, quietly begins to handle what your words never could. It's like watching a snake bite its own tail. The more it thrashes, the deeper it wounds itself. But the moment it stops struggling, nature steps in. Healing begins. Or imagine standing on the edge of a mountain, shouting into the vast emptiness. Your words echo back to you, unchanged, undistorted, unfiltered. That's how karma works. What you send out eventually circles back. The lies they spread, the harm they cause, the seeds of chaos they plant, all of it returns to them in time. Because while they're busy provoking, deceiving, and manipulating, you have a choice. You can fall into their trap, or you can step back, remain grounded, and watch as karma pens the final chapter. And here's the beautiful part. When you choose silence, that's when their actions finally weigh heavy on them. That's when their own energy, toxic, restless, desperate, turns inward. The moment you stop fueling the fire, it starts to burn itself out. So the question is, when do you step back? When do you let life, truth, and time do the work you've been exhausting yourself trying to handle? Stay with me. Because not only will we explore the exact moments when your silence is the greatest act of strength, the last one on this list might just shift your entire perspective about how you deal with conflict forever. Let's get started. Number 1. When someone lies about you, let's talk about one of the most universally infuriating situations. Someone tells a lie about you. It could be subtle, a whispered rumor, or a bold-faced accusation. Your first instinct? Defend yourself. Clear your name. Make sure everyone knows the truth. But here's the harsh, uncomfortable reality. Defending yourself against lies often does more harm than good. The more you react, the more you breathe life into the lie. The more you explain, the more you look guilty, even to people who had no doubts before. Why is that? Because for some people, truth isn't what matters. It's the reaction they're after. The person lying about you isn't searching for honesty. They're hungry for control. They want you rattled. They want you desperate, emotional, tangled in knots. They want you so caught up in proving yourself that every word you say feels like an admission of guilt. And if you engage, you're playing their game. This is where Stoic wisdom lights the way. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This isn't just advice about how to treat others. It's a rule for how to govern yourself. Because in a world where people will lie, deceive, and manipulate, your response defines you, not their actions. Instead of wasting your breath battling falsehoods, let time and truth reveal what's real. And it always does. People forget. Lies have expiration dates. They may spread like wildfire, but truth is timeless. It waits, steady, patient. And when it surfaces, it doesn't need you to shout on its behalf. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him James, was blindsided at work by a nasty rumor. Something he never did, something completely fabricated. In a matter of days, whispers spread. People distanced themselves. Some co-workers he thought were allies began to look at him differently. His first instinct was what any of us would feel. Go on a mission to set the record straight, prove them wrong, force everyone to see the truth. But James, leaning on Stoic wisdom, chose a different path. He stayed silent. He kept his head down, focused on his work, carried himself with professionalism, and let his actions speak louder than any explanation could. And what happened? Weeks later, the truth came out. The person who started the rumors had a long history of manipulation. It was revealed naturally through their own repeated behavior. James didn't have to prove a thing. His reputation remained intact because he never lowered himself to the level of drama and reaction. So how do you handle a situation like this? First, trust the long game. Lies may spread like wildfire, but truth is granite. It lasts longer, and it always resurfaces. Second, focus on your integrity. If you know who you are, and if your actions are aligned with your values, the opinions of those who believe lies simply don't matter. And finally, let karma, or call it fate, or the natural order of things, do its job. People who spread lies, who thrive on deceit, eventually expose themselves. Their own patterns catch up with them. You don't need to hunt them down or chase their approval. Life will handle it, because at the end of the day, your silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. It's control. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself because it radiates naturally. When someone lies about you, don't lower yourself to their level. Stay grounded, stay patient, and remember, the truth always comes out. And when it does, you'll still be standing with your dignity untouched. Would you like me to continue this format into number 2? If yes, I can keep this exact storytelling style, natural phrasing, smooth pacing, stoic scrolls tone, and add those engaging hooks and reflections as we move forward. Just say the word. As we just explored, those who lie about others will, in time, expose themselves through their own patterns. You don't need to chase them, fight them, or waste your energy trying to prove what will inevitably come to light. At the end of the day, your silence isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest, most disciplined form. And the same wisdom applies when you face something even harder than lies. Betrayal. Number 2. When someone betrays your trust, let's talk about one of life's harshest and most gut-wrenching lessons, dealing with betrayal. It's a word we don't toss around lightly because the pain of it lingers long after the moment passes. Whether it's a friend who turns their back on you, a partner who shatters the trust you built together, or someone you believed in who lets you down without a second thought. Betrayal stings in a way that few other experiences can match. And what's our first instinct? Confrontation. The overwhelming urge to demand answers, to call them out, to force them to acknowledge the damage they've caused. We want explanations, apologies, maybe even a little guilt. We imagine that if we can just make them understand how badly they've hurt us, it will somehow make the pain easier to bear. But here's the sobering truth. Words won't change a betrayer's nature. If someone was willing to betray you once, chances are, long before that moment arrived, they had already justified it to themselves. In their mind, they found reasons to excuse it. Maybe they told themselves it was necessary. Maybe they blamed you for their actions. Or maybe, worst of all, they convinced themselves that you somehow deserved it. And no amount of reasoning, pleading, or explaining will undo that. If you try to talk it out, they'll twist your words. If you attempt to make them feel guilty, they'll paint you as the villain in their story. It's a no-win scenario because the kind of person who betrays trust doesn't operate by the same values you do. This is exactly where Stoic wisdom becomes your greatest ally. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Betrayal, as agonizing as it is, isn't just suffering. It's a test, a moment life places in front of you not to destroy you, but to strengthen you. It forces you to set boundaries you once avoided, to reevaluate the people you allow into your inner circle, and to develop a clarity about who truly deserves a place in your life. The pain you're feeling isn't random. It's a lesson in self-respect, a lesson in detachment, and a lesson in letting go of those who were never meant to stay. Let me share a story. There's a woman I know. Let's call her Sarah. She had a best friend for over a decade. They shared everything. Secrets, struggles, victories, heartbreaks. The kind of friendship most people dream about. Or so she thought. One day, Sarah discovered that this friend had been speaking behind her back. Not just petty gossip, but revealing private conversations, sabotaging opportunities, and deliberately undermining her. At first, Sarah was furious. Every part of her wanted to confront this person, to make her see what she had done, to demand some shred of decency. But instead, she chose silence. No dramatic showdown, no accusations, no attempts to fix what was already broken. Sarah simply walked away. No explanations, no second chances. And you know what happened? The silence spoke louder than any argument ever could. The friend, expecting a fight, got indifference. Expecting drama, she received calm. And that silence, that void where conflict should have been, said everything Sarah needed it to say. So how do you handle betrayal? First, accept that some people will never be who you thought they were. The pain doesn't come from what they did. It comes from your expectations. And once you release those expectations, you free yourself from the weight of disappointment. Second, don't waste your breath trying to explain their wrongdoing to them. They already know. Even if they won't admit it deep down, they're aware of the damage they've caused. Trying to convince them won't bring you peace. It will only drag you deeper into the emotional chaos they created. And finally, walk away with dignity, not in anger, not in revenge, but in calm, unwavering silence. Remember this. Your silence isn't weakness. It's power. True strength lies in detachment. A betrayer feeds on your reaction, your guilt, your desire to give them second chances. Don't give them that satisfaction. Let your silence be the loudest statement you ever make. Let it remind them, long after you're gone, that you were never the one who lost. They were. They betrayed something priceless. And the moment you detached, you reclaimed control over your peace. Now let's move to number 3. When someone insults you. Because if there's one thing as universal as betrayal, it's insults. Whether it's a snide remark, a backhanded compliment, or an outright attack, we all face them. And while they may seem like minor irritations, how you respond to insults reveals the level of mastery you have over yourself. But more on that in the next section. As we saw with betrayal, your silence can speak louder than any words ever could. Choosing not to engage with those who wrong you protects your peace and strips them of the attention they crave. And nowhere is this principle more valuable than when you're dealing with insults. Number 3. When someone insults you, let's be honest. Insults are something every one of us has encountered. Whether it's a snide remark, a passive-aggressive comment, or a direct verbal attack, people insult others for one simple reason: to provoke. The moment you react, whether by arguing back, defending yourself, or even showing the faintest flicker of anger, you've handed them exactly what they were hoping for. You've given them control over your emotions. Here's the unfiltered truth. Responding to insults only gives them power. It's like handing your emotional well-being over to someone who has no business holding it. When someone insults you, they're fishing for a reaction. They want to see you upset. They want that little spark of frustration in your eyes, that crack in your calm, because to them, it means they've succeeded. They've gotten under your skin. But when you refuse to engage, when you stay calm, composed, unshaken, and indifferent, that's when you win. Nothing frustrates an insulter more than being ignored. It denies them the very thing they were after: your attention and your emotional energy. This is exactly where Stoic wisdom steps in. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoics, once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Take a moment to let that sink in. The instant you lower yourself to their level, whether it's through petty comebacks, defensive explanations, or even visible irritation, you've already lost the real battle. If someone chooses to be cruel, disrespectful, or small-minded, why on earth would you give them the satisfaction of seeing you stoop down to their level? Instead, take the higher path, one paved with silence, self-control, and dignity, because nothing rattles a person like a calm, unbothered presence they can't provoke. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him David, once found himself in this exact situation. He was at a work event, surrounded by colleagues, when a co-worker, clearly envious of David's recent promotion, decided to take a public jab at him. In front of everyone, this co-worker smirked and said, "Wow, guess they're just handing out promotions to anyone these days." The room went dead silent. You could feel the tension thick in the air. Everyone waited for David's reaction. Would he snap back? Would he defend himself? Would he awkwardly laugh it off? But David did none of those things. He simply smiled, made calm, steady eye contact, and said, "Nothing." Absolute, intentional silence. No anger, no defense, no witty comeback, just stillness. And you know what happened? The co-worker, expecting a scene, was left standing there awkwardly, his petty insult exposed for exactly what it was: insecurity disguised as humor. The silence was louder than any retort David could have given. And in that moment, David kept something far more valuable than the approval of that room. He kept his power. So how do you handle insults when they inevitably come your way? First, recognize this truth. Insults say far more about the person delivering them than they ever will about you. People who make a habit of insulting others are often projecting their own insecurities, frustrations, or unhappiness onto the nearest target. Second, understand that your silence is your strength. By choosing not to react, you send a clear message. Their words hold no weight in your world. You are unmoved, untouched, and unbothered. And finally, carry yourself with quiet confidence. Walk through the situation with your head high, knowing that your response isn't for them, it's for you. By maintaining calm indifference, you leave the insulter powerless, frustrated, and ultimately irrelevant, because at the end of the day, you cannot control what others say or how small they choose to be. But you can always, without exception, control how you respond. And sometimes, most of the time in fact, the most powerful response is no response at all. Because here's the deeper Stoic truth. Silence is proof that their words do not define you. You do. Up next, number 4, when they play the victim. And trust me, this is one of the most frustrating, manipulative behaviors you'll ever encounter. Let's get into it. As we saw, when someone constantly plays the victim, twisting facts and emotions to control the narrative, the smartest thing you can do isn't to argue. It's to step back. Because eventually the weight of their own patterns exposes them. And Rachel's story proved exactly that. In Rachel's case, it wasn't just one incident. This co-worker had a habit of flipping every confrontation into a dramatic scene. Any time someone held her accountable, she'd twist the story to make herself the victim. She'd say things like, "I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like that. I would never hurt anyone." And when things escalated, she made sure to cry in front of the right people, carefully staging her breakdowns so that Rachel, the one trying to address the issue, ended up looking like the aggressor. At first, Rachel did what most of us would instinctively do. She tried to defend herself. She presented the facts, showed proof, and attempted to have a calm, rational conversation. But with every explanation, things only got worse. The co-worker thrived on the drama. Every response Rachel gave was twisted into more proof that she was somehow attacking an innocent, misunderstood victim. It's an exhausting trap, one you can never win by playing. So Rachel made a different choice. She stopped. No more defending. No more explanations. No more reactions. She simply went silent. She disengaged from the game entirely and let time do what words could not. And sure enough, it worked. Over time, others began noticing the same patterns Rachel had endured. The co-worker played the victim one too many times. What had once seemed like believable sob stories and innocent misunderstandings started looking suspiciously calculated. People began seeing through the act. The same manipulative tactics that once worked like a charm became glaringly obvious, and eventually, her credibility crumbled. Because here's the thing, manipulation only works in the dark. Once it's dragged into the light by repetition and inconsistency, people catch on. So, how do you handle someone who plays the victim? First, don't argue. The more you try to explain yourself, the deeper you fall into their trap. Every word you offer feeds their narrative. Every defense you make is twisted to suit their version of events. Second, stay calm and detached. Don't get emotional. Don't give them the reaction they're fishing for. Let their own actions and the inevitable consequences expose them over time. And finally, trust life's natural order. People who habitually manipulate and twist the truth always reveal themselves in time. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but patterns don't stay hidden forever. And when they do unravel, it's often in ways no one sees coming. At the end of the day, silence is your greatest weapon in situations like this. Let them tell their story. Let them play their game. Because in the end, the truth never needs your defense. Time will handle that for you. Number 5. When they ignore your worth now. Let's talk about one of the most quietly painful lessons we all learn sooner or later. What happens when someone stops valuing you? It happens in relationships, friendships, workplaces, even families. There comes a moment when you realize, after giving, supporting, and showing up for someone, that you're not being appreciated. You offer your kindness, your time, your loyalty, and in return, you get indifference. Instead of gratitude, you get taken for granted. And what's your first instinct? To fight for their recognition, to prove your worth, to remind them what you bring to the table. But here's a truth few people want to admit. Begging for recognition lowers your value. The more you chase, the less they respect you. People rarely value what's constantly available. Familiarity makes them blind to worth. And worst of all, they don't notice what they believe they'll never lose. That's why silence is your greatest ally. When you stop proving, stop chasing, stop trying to make them see your worth, something powerful happens. The absence hits them harder than your presence ever did. Silence forces people to notice what they once overlooked. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes invaluable. Seneca once wrote, "Time discovers truth, and it's never more evident than when you quietly step away from those who failed to value you." The truth about your worth reveals itself, not through arguments or confrontations, but through your absence. The people who truly cared, who genuinely valued you, will notice. And those who didn't, they were never meant to stay. Let me share a story. A man I know, we'll call him Jake, was one of those people who always made an effort. He was the friend who checked in, the co-worker who went the extra mile, the guy who remembered birthdays, showed up in tough times, and made others feel important. But after a while, Jake began to notice something. The effort was one-sided. If he didn't reach out, days, sometimes weeks, would pass without a word. No one checked in on him. No one asked how he was. And that's when it hit him. He wasn't being valued. He was being convenient. So Jake made a quiet, dignified decision. No dramatic goodbyes. No angry speeches, just silence. He stopped chasing. He withdrew his energy and attention. And you know what happened? The people who genuinely cared, the ones who truly valued him, noticed the absence. They reached out. They made an effort. And the ones who had only kept him around out of convenience, they disappeared. It was one of the clearest lessons life could give, and it all happened without a word, without confrontation, without chasing validation. Because sometimes the most powerful way to remind someone of your worth isn't to shout it, it's to quietly take it with you when you leave. As Jake's story reminded us, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when someone undervalues you isn't to explain, plead, or demand recognition. It's to leave quietly and let your absence speak for itself. And that silence becomes its own message. So, how exactly do you handle being undervalued without falling into the exhausting trap of chasing validation? First, stop explaining your worth. Your value doesn't diminish just because someone refuses to recognize it. It isn't your job to convince people of what they should already see. When you find yourself constantly justifying your place in someone's life, whether it's a friend, a partner, or a coworker, it's a clear sign that they're not meant to hold that space. Second, take a step back and observe. The right people in your life, the ones who genuinely care about you, won't need reminders to appreciate you. They won't go days, weeks, or months forgetting you exist until you pop up in their notifications. Healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, flow in both directions. And when it's one-sided for too long, it's not a relationship. It's a transaction. And finally, let time do its work. Because silence, though it might feel powerless in the moment, is one of the most powerful messages you'll ever send. When you quietly walk away, you give people the opportunity to feel your absence. And sometimes, the only way someone truly, learns to value you is when they no longer have the privilege of access to you. It's one of life's difficult truths. People often notice what they had when it's no longer within reach. That's when reflection hits. And by then, you'll already be somewhere else, standing taller, surrounded by people who saw your worth the first time. And if you've stayed with this video this far, I'd love for you to leave a comment down below with a simple "Thank God" if this message resonates with you. Give it a like if you found value here. Your support means a lot, and it keeps me motivated to bring you more content that cuts through the noise. I hope these lessons offer clarity and strength, and that together we'll keep learning and growing through these timeless ideas. Thank you for being here. Number 6. When they try to provoke you now, let's talk about one of the most powerful and often overlooked forms of self-control. The art of not reacting when someone tries to provoke you. Because make no mistake, there will always be people who live for conflict. They thrive on stirring the pot. They poke. They prod. They say the exact thing designed to get under your skin, just to see if they can rattle you. And here's the truth. The moment you react, whether it's with anger, frustration, defensiveness, or even just a sharp reply, you've given them what they wanted. You've handed them control over your emotions. See, people who seek conflict aren't after resolution. They don't care about having a fair conversation or finding common ground. What they crave is a reaction. They want to see you flustered, upset, thrown off your game. They feed on that emotional energy because it gives them a false sense of control, of superiority. But when you refuse to engage, when you stay calm, collected, and unaffected, that is the ultimate power move. That's when the dynamic shifts entirely. This is where Stoic wisdom steps in again, clear and unwavering. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control how other people behave. You can't stop them from trying to provoke you. But you can absolutely control whether or not you allow them to affect your state of mind. And when you master that discipline, you become untouchable. Their words, their jabs, their petty tactics bounce off you like rain off a stone." Let me share a quick story. A guy I know, we'll call him Adam, dealt with this kind of person daily. At his office, there was a coworker who loved stirring up drama. Every meeting, every conversation, this guy would throw out subtle jabs and little passive-aggressive comments, clearly trying to provoke Adam into an argument. In the beginning, Adam would take the bait. He'd defend himself, argue back, and try to explain. And every time, it only made things worse. The coworker thrived on the reaction. But over time, Adam realized something crucial. No matter what, he said it wouldn't change this person. It only fueled him. So one day, Adam tried something different. The next time his coworker threw a jab, Adam smiled, made calm eye contact, gave a slight nod, and moved on with his business as if the comment didn't even register. No anger, no defense, just indifference. And guess what happened? The coworker hated it. He tried again and again, but without the reaction he craved, it became boring. Eventually he stopped, because that's the thing about people who provoke. Without fuel, their fire dies out. So, how do you handle people like this? First, recognize the game for what it is. Don't take the bait. Second, stay calm and detached. Remember, your peace is yours to protect. No one gets to pull you out of character unless you let them. And finally, understand this. True strength isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself, because when you can remain composed in the face of petty provocations, you win. Not just the moment, but the bigger battle, the one for your peace of mind. As we've just seen, the most powerful person in any room isn't the one shouting the loudest. It's the one who refuses to be controlled by anyone else's negativity. And the same wisdom applies when someone finally realizes what they've lost. But by then, it's far too late. Number 7. When they regret losing you. Let's talk about one of the most sobering and powerful lessons life will teach you. Walking away and letting someone carry the weight of their own decisions. Because when a person mistreats you, takes you for granted, or fails to appreciate your presence, there will eventually come a moment, it might take days, months, or even years, when the truth will hit them like a wave they never saw coming. They'll realize what they lost. And by then, the damage is done. The hard truth is this. If someone truly valued you, they would have never allowed themselves to be in a position to lose you in the first place. People don't always recognize your worth when you're there, when you're available, when you're the one showing up consistently, offering kindness, patience, and loyalty. It becomes expected, routine, overlooked, but the moment you're gone, the moment you go silent, that absence becomes deafening. It leaves a void where your presence used to be. And in that space, regret creeps in. That's when they start, replaying every careless word, every selfish action, and every missed opportunity to treat you better. And this is exactly why silence is the most powerful, most dignified response you could ever offer. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to send long messages explaining what they did wrong. You don't need to remind them of your value. Why? Because the silence itself delivers a message far louder than your words ever could. It lets them sit with the consequences. It forces them to feel the cold, undeniable absence of what they once had, but failed to appreciate. Because when you truly walk away, no dramatic exits, no final speeches, no second chances, and no lingering, maybe one day energy. Your absence does all the speaking for you, and this is where timeless Stoic wisdom steps in again. Epictetus once wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True strength has never been about controlling others, about changing their behavior, or about forcing them to see your worth. It's about mastering yourself. It's about having the clarity and discipline to walk away from those who didn't value you, and the wisdom to never look back. Because real power isn't found in chasing, begging, or hoping for someone to realize your worth. It's found in knowing exactly when to stop giving your energy to people who were never worthy of it in the first place. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Olivia, spent years in a long-term relationship where she felt invisible. She gave everything, her time, her love, her loyalty. She stood by her partner through every challenge, every difficult season. But instead of appreciation, she was met with indifference. He assumed she'd always be there, no matter how little effort he gave in return. Until one day, she wasn't. And here's the beautiful part. Olivia didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't threaten to leave. She didn't write one of those long emotional text messages trying to explain how she felt. She simply left. Quietly, gracefully, without ceremony. No long explanations, no final words. Just calm, resolute silence. At first, her partner brushed it off, convinced she was bluffing. He assumed she'd come back as she always had. But days turned into weeks, weeks stretched into months, and the silence that followed spoke volumes. By the time regret sank in, by the time the apologies started flooding in, by the time he finally realized what he had truly lost, Olivia had already moved on. She had rebuilt herself, found peace. And in the space where his absence used to cause her pain, she discovered strength. And that's the part most people never consider. By the time regret arrives, it's already too late. So how do you handle someone who regrets losing you? First, don't give them an easy way back. If the only time they realize your value is after you've gone, they never truly valued you. What they miss isn't you. It's the convenience of you. And that's not love. That's possession. Second, don't explain your absence. Don't give them closure. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the silence. Because the hardest thing for someone who takes others for granted is facing the reality of their own actions in the emptiness they created. And finally, remember this. Real self-respect isn't just knowing when to leave. It's having the strength to stay gone. At the end of the day, the most important lesson you can teach someone isn't through arguments or ultimatums. It's through absence. Once you walk away, stay gone. Their regret is not your responsibility. Their lesson is not your burden. Let them carry it. Walk away, stay silent, and let life and karma handle the rest. And if you found this message valuable, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more powerful, Stoic-inspired insights. Your support means the world and keeps this conversation going. I hope this wisdom finds you at just the right time.